right? Does this make sense? So, working with different dogs, we also have to know, we have to have the knowledge to look at de-escalation and how that would work. But in order to make a training plan, if we are going into a situation where we know we are doing some form of behavioral work, not even significant behavior, just behavior, going into it from the standpoint of de-escalation, from the standpoint of, we always go, what happens if this goes wrong? No one ever has the answer to that. They only ever have the answer for what happens if it goes right. And I'm like, with behavior, we go into everything. And what happens if this goes wrong? And do I have the underlying skill sets to make that better? Do I have the underlying skill sets to still turn this into a productive training setting? Because I'm going to tell you, if you just go into a situation and go, what if it goes wrong? And the trainer goes, don't worry, if it goes wrong, so they take the dog, they put the dog into some sort of like training scenario, and the dog goes, oh my god, and loses it. And you see all the social media clips of a dog that is put into a situation where there's too much pressure, that is there for behavioral work, and somebody straight arms them. The trainer is out here going, ooh, look, I'm so good at handling. And then, dog has feet and air back. Dog loses it again. Okay. Cool. What has the dog learned? Maybe the dog has learned, like, don't come at you. Like, if they're trying to eat the person. Then maybe we could say that the dog is not learning to eat you. Which, how valuable is that? Honestly, not very. Dogs don't generalize very well. So just because you can straight arm a dog, and I'm so happy that you can do that and make your little social media clip, means nothing. It, to me, tells me that you don't know how to train. It, to me, tells me that you put that dog in a situation not knowing that this could happen. Not knowing what is acting on the dog, and then you're shocked. Either you did it and you're shocked that this has happened, or you did it intentionally to cause that, so that you can stand there and show off how you straight arm a dog and don't get eaten because you work with the vicious dogs. I see you doing that, I'm going to go, you just have no idea what you're doing. Because if I'm seeing it, that means you've chosen to put it on social media. And if you've chosen to put it on social media, that means you're proud of that. Absolutely. I have worked with dogs that we are training with, and we put them in a situation where I did not know that that would cause pressure, or they are more often than not, we're pretty good at understanding what's causing pressure. More often than not, they're just wildly unstable. So that means that sometimes they feel this level of pressure from this, and sometimes they feel this level of pressure, and it can change daily and hourly. And magically, that bed did not scare them yesterday, but we came in and we went to put them on that bed, and it was actually a different color, and that caused them to try and jump. Cool. I have straight armed a dog. Wow. Am I fucking proud of it? No. Do I put that shit on social media? No. Because if I'm sitting there going, oh my god, I can straight arm a dog, something has caused that to happen. It is likely some form of pressure. And that's fine. That is training. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes a dog comes and you set up the training, especially if you don't have a facility. You're training in someone's yard, you're training in their house, you do not control the environment. That means pressure can come out of nowhere. That means somebody can come out of their house and let a dog loose, and the dog can go off, or like a plane can go overhead and the dog's terrified. Like, absolutely, it happens. My issue is that people put this on social media and they're quite proud of the fact that they're doing this. That was the plan. The plan going into it was, I'm going to take the dog is going to see the dog, and I'm going to handle the dog through it. What did we just talk about? If you're handling a dog through it, they are not learning what they need to learn. Maybe they're learning not to eat you. They are not learning anything about that. Because we do understand across all of the types of training, the dogs do not generalize well. So how is that useful? Right? So, if the dog cannot self-regulate, if we go into a training plan and the dog has no ability, no sense of impulse control whatsoever, no ability to self-regulate, we cannot expect we cannot expect any form of de-escalation. Because we are not able to put the dog in a state where it can calm down, because it cannot calm down. So we can either keep the dog at zero threshold, Like, it's not even close. It's the calmest dog in the world. Nothing is acting on the dog. Or every single thing causes the dog to go off, and then we have to handle it, which is not a super viable long-term training plan that has a lot of relevance to people and that want to like live with their dog. So, the other thing we have to understand if we're going to make a training plan that focuses on de-escalation, you had said yesterday something about the quality of impulse control and the quality of engagement. So, you have engagement now. You've recognized where the engagement is. It's getting better. Is it quality engagement? Probably not, but it's better. But do we build big behavioral training concepts on, I just barely have it? People do that in obedience and pet obedience and stuff. They just barely have a sit. They have like a lured sit at home. And then they go, I'm going to do it in the classroom. And I'm like, okay, well, if the dog fails, then the dog just doesn't sit, right? Would I want more steps in between? Probably. But it's a low stakes activity. It's a sit and it's a sit. If I am banking a dog's success on the engagement that they have, and I have kind of okay engagement at home, like I have it, but it's not great, and I've only done 5 reps of it. I did it 5 times and they did it, so I never did it again. And then I try and use that in a training class 5 days later in a room at a facility with 4 other dogs in it. Okay, I just barely had it. I had to fight for it at home. Now I think I'm going to use that skill. Just barely having engagement, just barely having impulse control, just barely able to hold our shit together, does not mean that we will be able to use it at the level that we are able to de-escalate and then put the dog in a state. It means we're going to have to fight for it, right? So we also want to look at a behavior plan and go, hey, like if I am fighting for this behavior, if I'm fighting for engagement, if I am fighting for impulse control, and I'm fighting to get the dog for that criteria in basic drills, I know that that skill set isn't good enough to start working mod, like to start working on big things, because it's just barely there. So part of also looking at de-escalating training or building a training plan that focuses on it is also looking at it and going, okay, it's there, but is it good enough to use in any scenario I would need it? And recognizing that it might not be, we might have to make sure it's at that level. Behavioral training, we cannot go, I did 5 reps, check in the box. Some dogs do 5 reps, they've nailed it, they have the world's best engagement. They do 5 reps, they're solid, like they're good. 5 days later, literally still the world's best engagement with distractions. Some dogs need 80 reps, then they need 80 reps in the next room, then they need 80 reps on their lawn. Right? And we need to look at that. We need to actually analyze every dog we have. And we actually need to, like, critical thought. Okay, I did it with 5 dogs and it was good here. I did it with 5 times with this dog. It was good. Does that mean if I do it 5 times with this dog, it's good? No. No. Right? So, if we're going to look at handling, we also, like, within de-escalation, I also talk about handling. There's a lot of people will talk about, like, handling, defensive handling, all kinds of things. We talk about handling a little bit differently. We talk about proactive handling. So, if I'm going to proactively handle something, proactive handling is handling or working a dog to influence the choice they will make. What would an example of proactive handling be?
When you're, say you see a dog on the street and you're kind of like asking your dog for a heel immediately?
Kind of, but no. Kind of, but no. Like, yeah, because you're doing the thing before they do the thing. So, yeah, when you immediately see anything and you're asking your dog for something before they even have a chance, I would actually call that micromanagement probably. But, like, actually, we call that micromanagement. If they're not even giving the dog a chance to think, they're just doing it immediately. So proactive handling, we'll step aside from David, we'll just go like a trick. Proactive handling. I'm going to handle or work the dog in a way that influences what the dog's about to do. So if I'm about to make a wrap trick, I have a dog on a leash, I have a pylon, I have a wall. If I took my leash and I let's say it's like a 10-foot leash, and I had my dog and I wrapped it around the pylon and it's still loose, But the dog can see that the leash is all the way around the pylon and to me. And I go, if the dog's here, Fido, and I go this way. Most dogs are used to being on a leash. Most dogs see the leash, they follow the leash. That's how some dogs know how to unwrap themselves from trees. So, is the dog likely to come right to me? Or, because I'm pointing this way and the leash is around the cone, are they more likely to do that? Just by setting up my leash, by going around, I am influencing the choice the dog is making. Luring, so I could set my leash up, like how I set my leash up. So I can proactively influence it with leash skills, like wrap. Just like the visual of where the leash is. Luring. Now, there's food luring is pretty obvious. Food luring is food on the nose, here we go. However, if I can set my situation up, and I'm okay, my dog is here and I want to send it here, I can take a step and point all my body here. I'm helping the dog figure out what choice to make. I'm going Fido, and I'm looking over here, my body language telling things, the leash is going this way, even if it's loose. We're leaving the leash loose, but everything is helping the dog decide what choice to make. Because if I stand here, and the leash is behind my back, even if it's loose, and I go to bed, I'm really not helping that dog make a choice at all. We're now seeing what that dog knows. No part of my body moved that way. Nothing's happening. But if I take a step and I point, and I go, Fido, I've helped the dog before the dog's ever moved. Right? So, luring, environmental setup, we can proactively we can set things up ahead of time to influence what choice that will make. You can do this environmentally a lot with if you want the dog to go over a jump. You want the dog to go over a jump, and you put the jump against the wall, and you put the dog here, the only way the dog has is to go over the jump. If I take a nervous dog and I have a very low jump, and I stand here and I hold the leash and I put the owner on the other side, and they say, come. Okay, I have proactively set that up, heavily influenced what that dog's going to do. So I have proactively either orchestrated the situation or handled it in such a way that it influences the choice the dog is going to make. Reactive handling. So, if I'm reactively handling something, I'm handling or working a dog to accommodate a choice that was already made. The dog made a choice. This is where I go, what do you do if it goes wrong? Right? So, when your dog, you said you have dogs where you teach it place as an obedience thing, and the first question I said, well, if they do break, what happens? Well, you have to go get them and put them back because they might have a short run of mating. So, you're having to go and get them, which is reactive handling. But, that's just an example of reactively handling the issue. But I would take it further and go, okay, what happens if you can't catch the dog or something? But reactive handling is also okay, people practice recall all the time. I'm cool, if the dog busts the recall, blows the recall, the dog is on a long line, what do people do? They reel the dog in. It's reactive handling. If you're reeling the dog in like a fish because it's yelling at a bird, the dog is making a choice, and we are handling the choice that they're making. But the nice thing about smart trainers is that you have the ability to handle it. If you are outside practicing recall, and your dog blows the recall and runs and yells at a bird, and you do not have a leash, that's not any form of handling, that's thoughts and prayers. That's just wow, I didn't know what would happen. So now our reactive handling is chasing down the dog. So here's the thing, if we are practicing recall, the dog runs off, chases a bird, barks at a bird, how are we reactively handling that? We're having to catch the dog. In that scenario, what does the dog learn? The dog learns it's faster than me because I'm slow. I do not run. So, what we want to do is we have to be always prepared to reactively handle a situation. We always have to be prepared to go, what happens if it goes wrong? Because in a properly handled scenario where you have to reactively handle something, the dog still does not learn what it needs to, like what we don't want it to learn. If the dog goes to bark at the bird and it's on a long line, and it hits the end of the long line, we reel it in, okay, it's blown the recall, but it has not learned it can catch the bird, and it has not learned it can run, and it has not learned it is faster than me. Reactive handling is not bad. Reactive handling is good if you're using it. But there's a lot of people that go, okay, cool, we're going to practice recall, and then there's no line. And then I'm like, but what happens if this goes bad? And it's not, oh, I reel the dog in like a fish. It's like, oh, I have to catch the dog. And now what has the dog learned? So proper reactive handling also means that the dog is learning from that experience nothing negative, maybe nothing positive, but neutral. You are preventing the dog from learning something you don't want it to learn. It might not be learning what you want it to, but it's not learning anything bad. So, one example would be reeling the dog in like a fish. Another example was one I just talked about. Okay, the trainer takes the dog, goes, okay, cool, I'll handle the dog through this, knowing the dog's about to react. Dog sees the other dog, or dog gets handed to the trainer, and the trainer goes, I know your dog bites people, just hand me your dog anyway. Knowing what will happen. Cool, you're handling the situation. No one is dying or getting bit. What is that dog learning? It's not learning to bite you. That's cool. Cool. But we are just handling it. The dog is not learning what it could learn in that situation. If it was a proper handoff with proper skills, it is learning, don't come at you, it is learning if it does this behavior with the trainer, oh, it's not going to be allowed to do that with the trainer. But it's not, again, we are in a situation where there is a leash, so it is not learning the worst thing it could. If somebody just said, unclip, I'm going to drop off the dog, I'm going to introduce the dog, I'm just going to unclip the leash so that you can make that. The dog could learn some pretty bad things. Dog could attack you and then you have no leash, right? Then we're just rescuing a situation. That's not good. The dog is learning it can eat you, or it can run. It's scared, and it learns it can run. So I will say, if you're training in the dark, you're not learning the worst things. But is that productive training? No, we wouldn't call it training. We would call it handling. And it would be very reactive handling. We are not helping the dog make choices. We are not teaching the dog what we want to teach or what we think we're teaching. We are preventing the situation from getting worse, but not adding anything useful to the dog's knowledge, right? So, we could also go straight arming.
Could you include, like, let's say, your dog is on leash, tries to correct another dog, you yank it back, kind of same
Yeah.
as the straight arming?
Yeah, I would have several questions about whether or not it's legit for that dog to correct that dog, because if the dog is correcting that, but yes, if the dog does go to do anything, yeah, if the dog does...
Like, yeah, the active...
Yes, the active is...
Don't go charge that dog.
Yeah, exactly, that is completely reactive handling. Again, good. I'd rather you, when the dog goes, handle the situation than let the other dog get eaten, but then I always go, okay, then we also have to, as soon as we handle it, any situation that ends in the phrase, I handled it, it wasn't a training scenario, I handled it, we then immediately stop and go, okay, what caused this? And how can we do it different? So yeah, you would be reactively handling it, and then you'd be like, okay, was it that we were too close? Was it that that dog was eyeballing? Was it that we put too much pressure? Was it that we've trained too long? And identify why. Because again, just purely being in a situation where you have to reactively handle does not make it bad. It only makes it bad if you don't then look at that information and go, what happened? Why? Who? How? Right? If we don't actually use some critical thought and evaluate that situation, then we're just going to end up in it again. Right? The other example I had is like if you have a dog loose in a house and somebody walks in, it's like an 8-month-old, and it runs and it's just jumping at people. Your dog is like super young, jumping at people. 4-month-old shepherd. We could go, ooh, we're going to hold the collar and stop. Right? I'm going to go boop. I'm handling it. I'm taking the dog off of jumping. I'm putting it in a sit. But is the dog learning anything that I'm handling it? I'm doing most of the work. Yay, no one's getting jumped on. But is the dog learning not to jump? Not really. Like it's 10%, but there's so many better ways to do it. Like, yes, the dog is learning a little bit, but you are handling, which means you are doing the majority of the work. Right? So then we have neutral handling. Handling or working on a dog in a way that doesn't influence their choices. What would be an example of neutral handling?
Letting a dog watch a squirrel?
Yeah, like if the leash isn't loose. So my first example is like, okay, we're out in the yard, we're going to practice like, maybe engagement, but recall. We're going to do something recall. The long line, it is not a flexi, it is not tight, it is not like got tension on it. It is 30 feet of line on the ground. You have the end of it, the dog is 5 feet over there. You call and come, and they actually come. The leash is present. We have to acknowledge that it is still doing work. The dog is not an idiot. It knows it's on a leash, even though it's completely loose. But it is doing the least amount of work that we can get a leash to do. So in any situation where like you and the tools and the environment are doing the least amount of work that they can do, it is neutral. I would make a strong argument that like a lot of structured interaction is neutral. Right? Again, like if the dog goes to do the thing and jump, the leash does get tight, but a person is not holding the leash. No tension is being put on the leash intermittently. The dog is the one making all the choices, which means the dog cannot say, hey, I'm going to base my behavior on who's holding the leash. So the leash is on a hard point, not a person, which means it has to be neutral. The wall doesn't have feelings. So we have like long line work, right? If we're working on a long line, that's a pretty good example of neutrality if it's loose. The other one would be free shaping. If I walk in a room and I sit down and I put a cone in the center and I just sit there and I do nothing, nothing's acting on the dog. Now, free shaping won't work if the dog doesn't have confidence or work ethic or communication system or understand. Which means in order to use neutral handling, which we want to use, we want the least number of things influencing the dog. In order to use neutral handling, though, we need a lot of mechanics in place. We need a lot of stuff in place. Free shaping is a perfect example. I walk into a room, I stand there, I do nothing. If I put a cone down, if the dog doesn't have work ethic, if the dog doesn't have communication system, if the dog doesn't have the confidence to try things, if the dog doesn't want to participate at all, if the dog is not going to, which means I'm going to have to further influence the situation to get them to do anything. But if I have all those nice concepts underneath, I can use neutral handling. I can't use neutral handling if I don't have proper concepts underneath. I can't put the dog in the wall and expect the dog to meet a whole pile of new people if we have not originally put more self-regulation, more impulse control, that dog had a communication system. Luna yesterday had a communication system. When I said, okay, if she jumps, you're going to freeze, back up, move forward, cool. She understands body language, she understands the markings that we've built in. Body language marking system, a reward history. We've built in a communication system, so we were able to use like structured interaction, line on a wall. We had to make that in order for me to get a bunch of random people to walk up and ask the jumpiest dog in the world by not moving, by not interacting, by not managing, saying her name, giving her commands, doing things, for her to adjust her behavior. She adjusted her behavior with each and every single one of you when you stopped moving. In order for her to do that, she needed to learn a lot of things first. We needed to make concepts. Our goal is always to put a dog in a situation where we're using neutral handling. Our goal is, once we're using neutral handling, we know we have some good stuff underneath.
It's funny though, like, free shaping is fucking hard.
Yeah.
It's like the number one, like, what do I do with my dog?
Correct.
It's so, and it's fair, it's okay to do things proactively if that's what's gonna build it, but like.
I also love that the facet to this is that you are not just talking about free shaping is fucking hard.
Yeah, my dog.
But free shaping is really fucking hard with an Avtroka.
Yeah.
Like, there's free shaping. Honestly, free shaping with a border collie is the easiest it's going to be. Free shaping with like a normal dog. Then there's free shaping with an Avtroka. That's next level shit. Okay?
Yeah.
People that have, you go to your fucking IGP club with your fancy things, everybody does sport work, everybody does things. I always say, listen, that's cool. You're taking a dog that wants to do something and you're giving it the opportunity to do the thing. You are channeling what is already there and you're molding that existing clay into something. When you do something with a dog that is not meant, bred, or has any inclination to do that and you succeed, I'm like, goddamn. You want to take, okay, the world's least biddable dog with, like, you'll have to build the work ethic to do multiple, and you're going to free shape with that. You can free shape with that dog, you can free shape with anything. It's the same with, like, people that do fancy obedience. If you do fancy obedience, I was like, cool, you got your junior sport dog here. You're starting with a shepherd. That's great. You're going to, I said, great, this is a great dog to try every sport with. Because we're biddable, we want to try lots of things, we want to do lots of reps. That's great. That's so good. You got the right dog for that. It'll be so nice when you like try all the sports, but I'm not going to be crazy impressed. I'm going to be like, wow, that's good. That you made a good choice in there. If someone comes to me with a dog they got off the side of a road in a box, and then Dud has to do 3 years of rehab on it, and then gets to the point where they can take their dog reactive side of the road box dog and compete in Masters Rally, then I'm impressed. Take a dog that does not want to do that shit at all and does not care, and you build then I'm like, cool, free shaping, hard. Biddable activities with non-biddable dogs, my God. Craziness.
But also like starter pack for training, you know?
Yeah.
They're like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
You're like, I should try this, and I'm like, you are trying it on like the hardest level imaginable. Good luck. You're gonna have your first experience trying that with an Avtroka. Good luck. So that's where I'm like, yeah, long line free shaping, right? Those are like go-to examples of neutral. There's lots of examples of like neutral handling when we get to higher levels of our mod because we are trying our damnedest to not influence the dog's choice because again, if I'm doing a board and train, I do not go home with you. I need that dog to be making choices on its own, to be acting on its own, to be working through that on its own. And I never, or almost never, have to intervene and influence that choice. If I can put a dog in a situation where I can do the whole situation and I pretty much don't have to influence, I can pay and be like, yes, good choice. I'm just saying, yes, that's a great choice. Yes, I'm not making the choice for the dog and then paying the dog when the dog does the thing. I'm just going, wow, that was a good choice. Wow, that was a good choice. Then the dog can go home, right?
I think that's why most board trainings don't work because
Correct.
it's dependent on the trainer being there.
Nailed it. Nailed it. And that is also why, like, so people send dogs to board and trains for, like, obedience. And to a degree, those are fairly successful because the whole point of that is that you say sit and the dog sits. The whole point, what people want out of the end of that program is that when they say sit, the dog sits. When they say heel, the dog heels. When they say down, when they say crate, the dog goes in the box. When we are talking about a behavior board and train, we are sometimes, the end goal is not the owner saying, well, when I say sit, I want the dog to sit. They're like, when my dog feels stress, I want it not to eat people. When my dog feels stress, I want it not to go through the wall. Like I want it to not go through a window. It's more of a broad goal. Because when you talk to someone and they say, oh, my dog tries to eat other dogs on the walk, you go, okay, the dog has this issue. That's the issue that they're coming to board and train for. Once you start to ask them more questions, you realize there's actually 73 other issues that are just not as dangerous, prevalent, or making them as scared as that issue. Right? So they're like, cool, yeah, my dog is like Luna is here because initially, Luna pulls on the walk. She pulls so bad. She pulls so bad I can't hire a dog walker. She pulls so bad I can't hire a dog walker. She's really reactive to dogs on the walk. As I'm talking to him, he's like, well, I also can't let her out near anyone. I also can't, like, bring her anywhere to any field. She has no recall. But, like, I can't have people come in my house, not because she's unfriendly, but because she cannonballs off their face without stopping. Right? So it's like, oh, okay, that was the issue that's concerning them, but then there's underlying issues. So if you do this, yeah, Luna's crazy. If you do this, well, yeah, Luna pulls and jumps and does stuff. But it was a minor level. So the other part of behavior, when you say, I'm going to do an obedience board and train, and they say sit, they only want sit. They actually don't have any other concerns. They're just like, that's what they want, that's what you provide, check in the box, you get money. And then the people that do like obedience board and trains go, wow, you can make way more money doing behavior. And they go, I'm going to try behavior, but behavior ain't sit. And then yes, they go home, and they go, my dog isn't doing well. Wow, I can't, like the dog is here, and yes, the dog can sit, but the dog sits until we see a dog and sits and then goes. And then the trainer goes, well, you need to tell them, you need to use your leash, you need to hit the button. Right, if the owner has good mechanics, that obedience will exist. The owner does not have good mechanics, or they put no behavioral stuff in the dog, then how is the dog supposed to figure that out? So yes, fun. So de-escalation focused handling is not reactive handling within fractious events. So fractious events are something that we term where the dog is freaking out, something like a barricade. The dog is in the crate, the dog is not coming out of the crate. If you decide to put your fingers in the crate, you're going to lose a finger. The dog is reacting at the dog is going haywire at a dog, you are having to reel the dog in and like hide behind a tree. De-escalation handling is not protecting safety and life in a fractious event. In an event where something is at risk, handling that situation and getting it done is not de-escalation focused handling. It shouldn't be. It's handling it. De-escalation focused handling should also be handling that safely, though. There are lots of people who handle situations like that. They intake an aggressive dog wearing a bite suit. They have their leash, they straight arm the dog, they wear a bite suit. Why would they wear a bite suit? Because the dog is going to bite them. So, how would we change even just that? Put a muzzle on the dog. Even that, like you can still wear your bite suit if you really need to. But the first thing I'm going to ask someone is be like, okay, so you're intaking this dog, you know it has potential to be aggressive to the point that you're nervous enough that you're wearing a bite suit. You're either nervous enough about the dog or you have such lack of faith in your handling, this is going to go bad. And you have the presence of mind to own and put on a bite suit, but you don't have the training skill to be like, put a muzzle on the dog. Well, what if the dog's a muzzle trained? Okay. There are still 18 other ways I can handle that don't involve me straight arming a dog in a bite suit. We do it. We intake dogs that we cannot meet all the time. I take dogs from all over Western Canada. I have people fly me dogs. Those dogs are actually pretty stable because they flow. I'm just saying, if your dog can fly, it's already on the top end of stable. Question?
Yeah, I guess, it is confusing because de-escalation, I could see people really misusing that. It's like, we de-escalate the situation,
but not the dog.
This is about the dog.
Because they'll fully de-escalate the situation and then be like, cool, the dog never needed to handle it. They fully de-escalate the situation, which does happen in some streams of training.
Yeah.
The dog isn't handling it well, so they actually manage they de-escalate everything else. They remove the pressure of everything else, which de-escalates the situation, but it doesn't give the dog any ability to handle it. So then they'll put it in again with a little bit less pressure, and the dog will still go, and they'll have to remove it, and they will go, well, because we had to remove less things, the dog has more skill. And again, the dog will learn something like that. But quite similar to, I'm straight arming the dog, what does the dog learn? Learns 10% of what you needed to, 5% what you need to. Same thing. To me, I won't argue that it's not training. I think I will never say that there is not a situation I would use that. There's always the dog somewhere where you go, I'd never do that, and then you meet that dog and you go, shit, I will be doing that.
Right.
So I'll never say that's not something that should happen or could happen.
Yeah.
But I will say in the majority of situations, that is inefficient.
Can you give us an example of what you would do?
In what?
In that kind of like, if you're going in instead of strong arming in a situation? Well,
How to intake an aggressive dog?
Yeah.
Well, first off, I'm not touching your dog unless there's a reason to. But we will do safety. Like, we'll do safety protocols and how we would do that, and why we do that, because that is completely unnecessary. And I'm going to say for you, if you are a dog, you're a dog walker. You deal with dogs that are pretty solidly not aggressive.
Yeah.
If you are in a situation where you are having to straight arm a dog, you should not be doing that. Just very honestly.
Yeah.
Like, that's where I also go, right, and there are ways to set it up that will prevent that ever from happening, but most situations that I see that she shows me the videos of, for people that are doing behavioral board and training, I see them doing this, and I go there, you do not need to do that. Even for them, they do not need to be doing that. They could have done it smarter. So, we're always looking for the least confrontational method with which to work a dog, and especially so if we have not established a communication system, which actually is your question. If you're intaking a dog, you have no relationship with them, no communication system, nothing. You have no knowledge of this dog has no knowledge of you. You should have knowledge of the dog, like you should have knowledge of the history. You've never met the dog, dog's never met you. Why are we going into it being confrontational? Even with we're not even talking like a dog that eats something. We're talking about like, okay, a dog that we're going to put them in the crate. They're just excited, they're crazy, they're excited, they're crazy. We go to put them in the crate and we're just like immediately silent. They go to say, no, we're not going in the crate. This is a pet peeve. You have behavioral training. They're doing behavioral board and training. They're doing behavioral training. They're doing behavioral training. Just private lessons. And you go in the crate. And the dog goes, no, I'm not going in the crate. And the trainer goes, we're going to hoof the dog in the crate. And I go, okay, there is a time and place for hoofing a dog in a crate. When you have purchased a training program and you are signed up to train someone for an hour on how to train their dog, and you have an hour with which to train their dog, and they are in a private lesson, or they are in a board and train, and they've just given you their dog for the next 4 weeks, if you take the dog in and the first thing you do is hoof the dog in the crate, you have time. You have 4 weeks to work the dog through that, actually. There's no the only reason you ever need to hoof a dog in a crate is like, I've done emergency evacuation. I absolutely can hoof a dog in a crate. Get the dog in the crate. We need to leave. The whole city is on fire. Cool? Yep. Hoof the dog in the crate. Crisis, something, hoof the dog in the crate. I can hoof the dog in the crate. And you know what? You are a walker. So, to me, I'm like, okay, maybe you are on a time schedule. It is not your responsibility to do crate training. Maybe you are a groomer. There are other things. You might have to put the dog in the crate and be like, okay. But, first off, as an industry, we need to then say, hey, client, you need to address that. Number two, if you are a trainer, if your job is training, you have signed up to train that dog, and the first experience you have is go in the crate, which is a training behavior. Like, that's actually something we can train. We can. Newsflash, we can train dogs to go in crates on that. We can actually just say crate, and we can teach them going in the crate is good. If the first thing we do is we want to hoof you in the crate, why? My first question is why? Like, you're a trainer. If you're a boarding kennel, if you're a walker, if you're whatever, you can argue that at least. You can partially argue it. I'll argue it back, for sure. But especially if this is a board and train and it is just being dropped off with you. So either you suck at training if you're hoofing a dog in a crate, or you lack time management skills and the skills necessary for your industry, because I'm going to tell you, when we intake a dog for a board and train, there is the most minimum clearance we'll give is half an hour. That's typically, like, I've put eyes on that dog before. So when that dog gets dropped off, this facility is locked down, nothing is happening. We have half an hour in case that dog decides to not get in that crate, in case that dog decides, hey, we're okay. And that is the most minimum amount of time. That is, we are intaking something with no problems. Most of the time we have an hour clearance. We set it up so that everyone is in lockdown. We have it set up. We will work you through it. Because we anticipate, some dogs come in and we go in the box, and they go in the box, and we go, woo, that's a 5-minute intake. Bernie was 17 minutes, door to box. So Bernie, from the car, we got him out, we got in, we worked him through crate for 17 minutes. For 17 minutes, we worked him in and out, getting familiar, establishing a communication system. Both of us were here, we were prepared, because that's our job, and we actually like take pride in our job. But we had a full hour. The longest we have intaked a dog was 4 hours. 3 or 4 hours. Correct. And that means before an intake like that could go long, we have peed, we have shoes, we have had a snack, we have water, because we are not leaving until this is done. And if it takes 45 minutes to get from the door to here, it will take 45 minutes, because that is our job. Our job is not board the dog. Our job is not walk the dog. Our job is train the dog. And training starts at communication. Training starts at building a relationship. Training starts at building consistency. And if day one at drop off, we do this, and we do this, and we do this, then the next day we do something different. Are we consistent? No. It's an interesting life choice. Time and distance are phenomenal tools when remaining non-confrontational. So yes, if I set everything up poorly and I have a client in 10 minutes and I need to get a dog in a box, yeah, I don't have the luxury of time or distance. So I have to be confrontational. I have to hoof the dog in the box. I have to straight arm the dog. But if I'm not an idiot, I can set it up so that I have time and distance, and I can be non-confrontational, and I can actually establish communication and consistency and behavioral patterning right off the bat.